This is Rebecca Lowe, or Rebecca Lua, if you listen to Suboptimal Radio, and you are listening to Men in Blazers on the NBC Sports Network.
It's unbelievable!
From the Embassy Row studios in the crap part of Soho, it's the Men in Blazers special breaking news podcast.
It's
Rog.
Men in Chuck Blazers.
Men in Chuck Blazers. Rog, one, I've just got to say, I have never seen you happier. I've never seen you with more of a spring in your step and a twinkle in your eye than I see you today. Congratulations. Great performance on Morning Joe on CBS this morning. Tune GFOPs. Just search for Rog on Morning Joe and on CBS this morning, talking about the FIFA scandal. It was just brilliant.
Oh, I'm happier than Mary Poppins this morning. I feel great about life.
Okay, Rog, you ready for the recap? Yesterday morning, people across America, that was Wednesday morning, woke up to the news that federal prosecutors, Rog, from these very shores were taking massive steps to stem the systemic corruption that pervades FIFA. The US Department of Justice, and your new hero, Rog, unsealed an indictment.
Loretta Lynch.
You love her. She unsealed an indictment charging 9 FIFA officials and 5 others with offences that included racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering conspiracies. 7 of the 9 FIFA officials charged were arrested at a 5-star hotel in Zurich, Switzerland, where FIFA's Congress convened ahead of Friday's vote to presumably re-elect everyone's favourite ever-benevolent dictator, Sepp Blatter.
Scaramanga.
In a news conference, US Attorney General Loretta Lynch said the charges stem from corruption that spans 2 generations of soccer officials who've been involved in millions of dollars in bribes and kickbacks. And in Switzerland, Swiss authorities announced a separate probe into the awarding of the 2018 and 2022 World Cups.
Sources tell me
Qatar.
they do that probe with an enormous Swiss horn as well.
Let's hope so, Rog. Let's hope so. So you're giddy, you're excited, your reaction, you're proud to be an American, Rog.
Watching Loretta Lynch say, essentially, take that, Gloria,
Yeah.
to Sepp Blatter.
Yeah.
It was a great American moment. It was like watching the Marshall Plan be gifted to the world all over again. It was like watching the Americans put a man on the moon, but that man on the moon was wearing cleats.
Yeah.
I felt like I was there at the Declaration of Independence when it was being signed. That's how great it was, Davo.
Yeah.
Because Loretta Lynch, I got tears in my eyes during the press conference watching her say what we've always felt, what we've always believed, but we've never been able to prove. She became instantly my favourite Lynch since David Lynch.
Yeah.
I love her even more than John Lynch.
Yeah.
And I like John Lynch quite a lot.
And look, she's my favourite Lynch now. And you don't know how much I love Lynch Barge Bordeaux. So that's saying a lot, the wines of Michelle Lynch.
I love the FBI director, whether you call it soccer or football.
Soccer.
The fans, players and sponsors around the world who love this game should not have to worry about officials corrupting their sport. This case isn't about soccer.
Soccer.
It's about fairness and following the law. I didn't so much love the cheesy IRS director with his red card quote.
Yeah.
But it was very IRS-y humour, bless him.
It is.
It was like Law and Order, FIFA Takedown, with just a hint of Orange is the New Black.
The Good Wife.
Without a doubt, it was the best episode of Without a Trace I've ever seen, Davo.
Yeah.
I braced myself for a second, imagining that even now Europol were about to retaliatory storm NFL offices and arrest Roger Goddell.
Yeah, could happen.
But then I realised America would actually like that, Davo.
Yeah.
The only downside of yesterday,
Yeah.
and it's cursed me a little bit because I've been watching the FIFA Congress, which is like the Spectre Congress, but with more mountain horns and a lot more yodeling.
I like the Eurovision Song Contest, frankly, Rog.
FIFA, listen to me. You fooled us before with your diversionary tactic of sending on yodelers to try and confuse us and misdirect us. We won't fall for that again.
Yeah.
But watching it, Davo, this whole twist, I used to love the FIFA anthem.
Dun 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 dun.
And now, when I hear it, I feel like I hear lyrics that have never been...
Let's embezzle the money, get apartments for all of our cats. That's what I think it might be, the lyric.
It's put me off. It's put me off, Davo, the FIFA anthem, which makes me a little bit sad. But I've got to say, watching the FBI, Davo, and the Justice Department and the IRS, bless, give Sepp a swift kick in the balls.
Never been such a fan of the IRS than I have been in the last 24 hours, Rog.
I felt like Joan from Mad Men when she did cocaine.
Yeah.
I felt like someone just gave me some very good news. At Germinator tweeted us to say, I always thought it would be the High Sparrow and Faith Militant busting into FIFA headquarters. to bring Blatter to justice.
You know, what people keep on asking me, Rog, in the last 24 hours is, why is this the business of the United States? People who don't really follow soccer don't really know why FIFA or know much about FIFA. Why is this the business of the United States? And it seems clear that what the US authorities are saying are two things. One is that this is $150 million that they allege is corrupted has passed through US banking accounts. And so the corruption, the bribery, the fraud has touched our shores, and therefore we're going to go after you. If you bring your corrupt organization, you let it touch our shores. But this is also about the massive amount of money generated by US broadcast rights and by US-based sponsors. And the fact is that a lot of that FIFA money touches the US deeply.
Yeah, we will break that down, and we'll also have as a guest Bob Lee of ESPN to talk about this.
He shaved his beard, Rog.
Possibly. That's the real reason I'm getting him on. Forget the FIFA stuff. I want the big hard-hitting news. Yeah. But we'll talk about the kind of why America, why now, why these guys. I mean, to me, it was JW actually that said this. He imagined that the whole thing was going down like a scene from The Wire, David.
It has pulled him out of his Ipswich losing in the championship playoff funk. His funk. It's pulled him out.
He imagined like McNulty and Bunk leaning on the FIFA lieutenants, desperate for one of them to roll over onto Avon Barksdale / Sepp Blatter. And I wrote to Robert Carlock later this pod, and I suggested that to him, and he wrote back and he said, everything in life is like The Wire.
It's very, very true. I poured you a glass of Malbec, by the way.
Cheers.
Rog, cheers.
Celebratory Malbec.
Oh, lovely.
Malbec has never, to my lips, tasted so sweet.
What I'm so happy about, Rog, is for years, Europeans and South Americans have been explaining to Americans when Americans suddenly realize, so who are these FIFA guys we've got to listen to?
I think Loretta Lynch called them FISA.
And Europeans and South Americans said, look, it's just the way it is. FIFA are there. You can't do anything about it. But this is really the moment for me when American soccer has arrived, because they've said soccer is going to be important enough to us that we're not going to deal with that corrupt, crony, ridiculous organization.
Ridiculous.
We're going to take them down. This, for me, genuinely is the moment that soccer has arrived in the United States and in the process taking down FIFA land.
I agree. I love that FIFA, Davo, is finally on page 1 of the New York Times.
Amazing.
I love that it's on the nightly news. This is what it takes to create change.
Yeah.
To make America... I always dreamt that football would be on page A1 of the New York Times. I didn't imagine... I've craved this day, though, for so long, Davo. Ever since I read Andrew Jennings' great book, Foul, The Secret World of FIFA, Bribes, Vote Rigging and Ticket Scandals. Andrew Jennings, if you've not heard of him, amazing follow on Twitter. He's a journalist who's devoted his entire life to exposing FIFA. He's been relentlessly undermined, kind of smoke-screened, Heismaned, and he's finally had his day today. He tweeted this morning that he has handed over to the FBI material which implicates Sepp Blatter, and says Sepp Blatter is not yet implicated but soon will be. This is FIFA's Lance Armstrong moment, David.
So this is the second thing. Is the second question people ask is, okay, this is all about 150 million. We're talking about a company that has like more than 5 billion in reserves.
Yeah,
why is this only about 150 million?
A non-profit that has $1.5 billion cash reserve.
Yeah. So
that's a kind of non-profit.
So why
I believe
is it so little? And I think that the reality is, and what we expect, is that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what will be further charges, and one assumes not only by US and Swiss authorities, but potentially now all the other nations where this money is passed through.
Massive day. I mean, there's been a landfill's worth of rumours about FIFA. We've been titillated by photographs of bags of cash in hotel conference rooms being handed over. There's been rumours of wrongdoing. Michael Garcia it released a report that was privately released within FIFA, never saw the light of day. I mean, simply put,
Rog, there are $4,000 a month apartments just for Chuck Blazer's cats.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't write this stuff.
Cats need somewhere to live too, Dave. I'm just surprised he only had one.
Yeah.
I mean, Qatar's going to host a bloody World Cup, David. That's kind of like, is FIFA?
Well, will they?
Even Harvey Keitel in Bad Lieutenant would say that sounds a bit dodgy.
A bit far-fetched.
I mean, it is. It's a non-profit with $1.5 billion cash reserve. But now, for the first time, and it's beautiful, I have it on my desk. There's an indictment stuffed with malfeasance, 162 pages worth, with the stamp, the crest of the US District Court's office and the legend, United States against, and then all of the 14 defendants' names under it. And it had to be America. I mean, we've said this for years, Davo, together.
Well, you deserve a lot of credit, Roger. You've said it forever.
It had to be America that took this step. We should say English journalists.
Credit English journalists, and credit also Parliament that actually took this. They had hearings. British journalists have been all over it.
The
but
Times,
what did Sepp Blatter
sensational.
do so effectively? He made this about, oh, this is just an English FA thing. This is just England. This is just their journalists. They're just resentful because they lost the game. And it turned the rest of the world against
His base is Africa. His base is chunks of Asia. His base is CONCACAF, I'm ashamed to say.
Pre-colonial Britain.
This is CONCACAF thunder. And whenever the English would expose painstakingly malfeasance under Blatter, he would take their headlines and rally the base, say, look at the English trying to cling on to power, there's a new world order, don't be held down. It reminded me, watching him, and this is something that Americans don't understand, always, how could he get away with this? There's no democracy at FIFA, there's no accountability, there's no checks and balances, they talk about transparency, there's not an iota, they don't even release how much Sepp Blatter gets paid within this non-profit. To me, it's Chicago machine politics under Mayor Boss Daley in the 1960s.
Well, and also it's a global electoral college in some ways. In some ways, it is a little bit like American presidential democracy. It's a global electoral college.
It's a machine,
where
David.
Small nations have just as much power and therefore more power than the more established
Montserrat,
nations.
with 5,200 inhabitants, has as much of a say in FIFA's doings as the people of Germany, the 200 million people of Brazil. They all have one vote.
Yeah.
And it's Chicago machine politics writ on a global scale. When I first came to Chicago, one of my first jobs was working with the African American police sergeants, police league. There were sergeants' exams annually in Chicago, and a couple of hundred sergeants were promoted. Every year there was one or two African Americans that rose through the ranks. And when it came through, in the year I was there, I think 2 were made sergeant. The Chicago Sun-Times wrote a huge front page story about kind of inherent racism. And it made no difference. And the woman who ran the police league said, listen, unless we can get this story into the New York Times, stories in Chicago don't dent anything. They don't mean anything. They don't impact Chicago. You have to get it out of Chicago. It has to be aired nationally to create change within Chicago. In the same way, FIFA never cared that England hated it. They didn't care that many people in Europe... It
made them stronger to some extent.
They don't hate that UEFA hate them. Exactly. It makes them completely stronger. But it is a world of difference, Davo, for FIFA when America...
Where they're trying to grow the game, the future of the game, and the home of most of their massive
McDonald's,
sponsors.
Budweiser, Visa, Coke. When those massive American-based global multinationals are embarrassed and suddenly their brands are linked to corruption, to bribery, to fraud, to the 1,200 deaths of essentially slave workers building the stadiums in Qatar, FIFA have to take action. And that action involves money, Davo, because that's the only language that FIFA understands. We've always said it had to be America that took FIFA down. And this is it. We're now reveling in, FIFA scriptwriters going full George R.R. Martin on this one, because the characters, Davo, the characters are riveting, from Sepp Blatter.
Amazing.
Shame on balls. Shame on balls.
I just quickly want to say, in full disclosure, Embassy Row is, the parent company of Embassy Row is Sony. Sony was a FIFA sponsor, pulled out last year. Certainly one of the first companies to go and do it. And one does expect over the next few weeks that a number of these other American sponsors are going to pull out. That's going to have
Visa today with a statement, we are extremely concerned. That is management marketing language for kind of push him over the board.
Yeah, and I can...
push the Swiss ball over.
And I am aware that there are massive internal conversations going on right now at networks that have the broadcast rights for the 2018, 22 and 26 World Cups. That is obviously for the English language rights at Fox and for the Spanish language rights at Telemundo. Huge conversations right now about how those sponsor decisions are going to affect the value of the World Cup. By the way, all of this happening, this broke yesterday during media day for the US women's national team in the US, which is terrible that it happened on that day, taking away the attention from those wonderful women going up to Canada to go and win the World Cup. And all of this is going to cloud the Women's World Cup. It's something that I feel depressed and sad about.
Yeah,
Although
I agree with
will
that.
heartily enjoy booing the FIFA theme throughout, or singing the lyrics.
Let's embezzle the money.
Get apartments for all of our cats.
I've got to say, I'm starting to think the Women's World Cup, and this is what makes me sad, this is just an elaborate sting of opportunity for them to lure in FIFA dignitaries and then arrest them. Yeah, I imagine.
Any country where there's an extradition treaty. I'm sure if you go to Switzerland right now, the Google search for countries with extradition agreements with the United States is like the most... if you put in countries which, that's what follows after it.
And Sepp Blatter's assistant is currently typing out a memo saying to Sepp Blatter, what Mounties look like.
Yeah, she's writing Russia, North Korea, Venezuela.
Sepp, I know you're listening to this because you're a great friend of the pod.
Yeah.
All you need to do in Canada, if someone on a horse approaches you in a red outfit and a Pharrell hat, just avoid them. That's
just
all
hope it's Pharrell. Just hope it's Pharrell.
Right, so we've got to talk about these characters, David.
Yeah, that's
Sepp Blatter.
Yeah.
As the late, great Robin Williams called him.
He's not been indicted yet.
Most Americans actually today think his name is Seth. We're getting an amazing number of emails. What's with the Seth Blatter guy? I'll tell you what's with him. He's a shame on bald. That's what he is.
Totally.
To me, it's as if Scaramanga from James Bond had a bastard offspring with all the King's Menace, Huey Long.
Yeah.
He's an amazing character.
He's such a Bondian villain, Rog.
He's a cockroach.
Yeah.
He will survive anything. This is what makes me terrified, and we'll talk about outcomes. He's terrifying. There is a scenario, Davo, in which literally the FIFA vote tomorrow goes on, and just the chamber starts exploding with like explosive charges that are let off, and then Blatter just kind of scuttles to the side of the stage, looks at the camera,
puts
his
like the end of Kingsman, if you've seen that movie.
Yeah, and just gets into an escape pod and goes, "You will see me again, Loretta Lynch, I'll be back," and then blasts off in a tiny escape pod. I think that's a rational, possible, logical outcome. That escape pod will have McDonald's logo on the back.
But Seth Blatter is, he's believable and a bit terrifying, and he sort of maintains his sort of fraud of dignity.
Yeah.
When he's not speaking. The minute he opens his mouth with that squeaky high voice he's got, and with that ridiculous way his face contorts when he speaks.
Yeah.
And he says, "The World Cup 22 goes to Qatar." He sounds ridiculous. He's a man who, when he speaks, he belies how creepy he is.
Oh, that's so...
He doesn't have an evil villain's voice. He has a ridiculous high pitch.
That's the source of his power, David. He doesn't seem threatening. He doesn't. Because today, I love this article from the front page of The Australian, where they're doing a biography. Everyone wants to know who is Seth Blatter. They said, he's a wedding singer, sports reporter, amateur footballer. He did PR for the local tourist board in Switzerland, and somewhat unnervingly, was the president of a group that called themselves the World Society of Friends of Suspenders. That's how you break through, David, to become a sports global industrialist.
Suspenders in that sentence are not the suspenders that we know as things that keep your pants up.
Oh, you think they were like garrots that actually remove people from the mafia?
Very like Martyr Day. There's something
there's little on Sepp Blatter's CV in the early 1970s to suggest that this chubby little man with thinning hair, leave off him for this thinning hair, would emerge as one of the most powerful figures in world sport. So those of you young people who are listening, who are currently kind of aimlessly drifting, like a young Sepp Blatter, don't look at it as aimlessly drifting anymore. Look at it, you're amassing power on the way to the big one. There's things I admire about Sepp Blatter, David. There really are. I really wish there's things he has that I wish I had.
You feel he's like Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, and Jesus, as he was likened during the recent CONCACAF.
Oh yeah, by the CONCACAF conference. Yeah. That was very fun. And that's not. I don't like him for that.
Yeah.
I love his, and I admire. And I wish I had his ability to cravenly lie in front of the viewing world without letting out a cackle. It's an amazing skill, David. In 2013, he went to Oxford University and said to students,
"Perhaps you think I am a ruthless parasite sucking the lifeblood out of the world and out of football, the godfather of the Fifi gravy train." He told the Oxford students, "There are those who will tell you that FIFA is just a conspiracy, a scam, accountable to nobody."
Yes.
And they would be correct. No, he didn't say that.
No, he didn't say that.
There are those who will tell you of the supposed sordid secrets that lie deep in our Bond villain headquarters in the hills above Zurich.
Just read that line again, David. This came out of his mouth.
There are those who will tell you of the supposed sordid secrets that lie deep in our Bond villain headquarters in the hills above Zurich.
It's an amazing... to be able to stand there, Davo, and say that, there are those who believe that FIFA is just a conspiracy, a scam, accountable to nobody, that I'm a ruthless parasite sucking the life. To be able to say that and say, there's people who think it's a Bond villain headquarters. To say that without
laughing. He shows
laughing.
a perfect understanding of what it actually is. That's the most self-awareness that I've ever seen him reveal.
And then today, Davo, at the FIFA conference, when he made the most awkward speech, I felt for him. I did. A tiny bit of me felt for him.
You did not.
To have to weeble on stage knowing that everybody, like me, was watching him just being like, resign, resign, resign. Or worse, go, be punished. You should be going to build the Qatar Stadia as great punishment for the next 7 years. Send them off send them all off. But he said today, many people hold me responsible. I can't monitor everyone all of the time.
Yes.
If people want to do wrong, they'll also try and hide it.
One bad apple.
In his F.E. Trinketish kind of accent, Mr. Suboptimal tweeted us. Essentially, Sepp Blatter said today, I did not have bribery relations with that $1 billion. At Potsdamer Platt said, hey, Sepp Blatter. And he actually tweeted him in the handle, hey, at Sepp Blatter. I'm not sure what your weekend plans are, but you might want to rent Get Hard while you can. Which I love. What do you think Sepp did last night, Dave? That's what I was trying to think. He had to make this speech in public. His whole empire is burning down.
Well, he probably got on the phone with his friend Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. Do you think he calling him Vlad or Poot?
Mr. President.
Lord High Executioner.
Fellow dictator.
Fellow dictator. Game recognizes game. Evil game recognizes evil game.
I think he probably got on the phone with Vlad, spoke to a few of his friends, counted his money again, stroked his cats, went next door to the apartment he has for his cats and stroked them, came back. Maybe had one of his servants draw a long bath for him, and he took that horrible, fat, wrinkly body and put it in the bath, displaced enormous amounts of water, and drank a carafe of hot chocolate in the bath.
Sometimes Sepp has a moment like Bridget Jones, he says to himself, eating his comfort food. I imagine him holed up in his Zurich hotel room, Dave. Just Jim Beam bottles just strewn across the floor. Yeah. Eunuchs fanning him, obviously.
Yeah.
Hookers have been given a night off. Slapped on the ass.
Lucky hookers.
The crucial detail I don't know, Dave.
Yeah.
Was he listening to a Philip Larkin book on tape?
Probably not.
Or was he watching 300? I think we'll know his state of mind with the answer to that question. Yeah. Talking about Vladimir Putin, Dave.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, bravo, Vlad.
I'll tell you,
I have to tell you, his press officers, they are...
He has just ensured that the 2018 World Cup stays in Russia.
I just think he's a genius. Only Vladimir Putin would put out a press release and saying that his pet tiger is killing sheep on the Chinese border. That is genius to me.
The US cannot afford to go to World War III over the 2018 World Cup. He's ensured...
We can't back off, though. We're America.
He's ensured that the 2018 World Cup will go ahead in Russia.
Well, can't you think, when he said the US are illegally persecuting people, and then he tried to portray the probe as, quote, a US attempt to go after dissenters, likening the case to the persecution of Julian Assange and Edward Snowden.
Sorry, I need more
The US, Snowden, Assange. I've got to say, Vlad...
Yeah.
We admire you for your hockey playing. 8 goals in that game that we showed on the Men in Blazers show. We don't like it when you talk about politics. You should not mix politics with your sporting acumen, I think. I don't like him on the hockey. He's like Jeremy Roenick with less hair. By the way, we got to talk about another guy.
Yeah.
Chuck Blazer.
Oh, thank God. I love Chuck Blazer.
I can't tell if he's a great American for squealing on FIFA.
Please.
Or the worst man to walk the footballing planet, David.
Please, everybody listening right now, go to your computer or on your iPhone or your whatever other smartphone you're using, and if you Google image search. If you don't have it embedded in your brain camera, Google image search Chuck Blazer. Unless
you're eating or in the mood to make whoopee, as my grandmother would call it. If you're in the mood to make whoopee, just wait till post whoopee till you look at it, because nothing will put you out of the mood quicker.
This man's face just brings me enormous pleasure. It just brings me enormous pleasure.
Describe.
Well,
He makes me glad I'm bald.
he has a large square face. He wears bifocals down at the end of his little nose. He's very hairy. He's got a fine head of hair.
Amazing. We respect that.
Hairline.
Good work.
But he's just bearded and he's large and he's rotund and he kept an apartment full of cats.
Yeah,
Read Jason Gay's article in the Wall Street
He's
Journal.
essentially a Walter Mosley character come to life, because you could not make up a real person like this, David.
Rog, is he a hero or is he a villain? This is what I can't figure out.
He's a Walter Mosley character. Let me just read a couple of extracts from the New York Times expose
he
on
is
him
the
today.
He is the whistleblower.
Yeah, the whistleblower.
Yeah.
The man who made a fortune in CONCACAF brown paper bags that were handed over to him for decades. The New York Times takedown, they call him a bearded man who lived in 2 apartments at Trump Tower in Manhattan, one for himself, the other an office said to be sometimes occupied by cats.
Let's embezzle the money, get apartments for all of our cats.
Then they said he first made a fortune out of marketing smiley face buttons, and then a second out of World Soccer, where his penchant for collecting commissions as a soccer power broker, poker. I love the name Bagman. I'd love to be a bagman. I'd like to apply for that job. Earned him the nickname Mr. 10%. They say he's a vast man with a big bushy mangy beard. Vladimir Putin told him he looked like Karl Marx, which I can't tell whether it's a compliment or the ultimate diss. But he walked around with a pet macaw on his shoulder, which was named Max. Max. He's now lying sick in a New York hospital bed, riven with disease. He can barely speak, but he has said enough and won a wiretap for years to bring down many of these characters, including Jeffrey Webb, the CONCACAF leader who's vice president of FIFA.
You had breakfast with him, Rog.
I did.
And lived to tell the tale.
I did. He's the only... Yeah, I think the thing that made me think he was slightly dodgy is that he was oft rumoured to be Sepp Blatter's successor. Yeah. And his resume starts off saying one of the Cayman Islands' leading bankers. There's a clue there. I had breakfast with him, and Matt Futterman of the Wall Street Journal, who's a wonderful man.
Played tennis with him in Austin this year.
He's a great tennis player.
Yeah.
He's a better journalist. And he said...
In every sense of the word.
He said to Jeff Webb, while we're having breakfast, he said, Jeff Webb, you've just replaced as the head of CONCACAF, Jack Warner, the gentleman who is ground zero for all corruption, essentially, at FIFA to that point that had been caused.
His sons are also whistleblowers.
A terrible, terrible man. And Matt Futterman said to him, how do you change the culture of CONCACAF Thunder? How do you change the culture of CONCACAF? And this is fascinating from a FIFA perspective, not just CONCACAF. He said, it's riven with bribery, with corruption, with wrongdoing. And Jeffrey Webb laughed and he said, it's just a few bad apples.
Yeah.
And Matt Futterman said, I grew up in New York City.
And I'm one of them.
I think that was implied.
He didn't say that.
That was implicit ellipsis. He said, Matt Futterman said, I grew up in New York in the 1980s when there was massive corruption in the New York police force. And he said, whenever they caught cops doing bad things, they'd say, that's exactly what the mayor would say today. We caught a few bad apples. And Jeffrey Webb just picked up an enormous croissant and stuffed it in his mouth and smiled. So that is what I know of Jeffrey Webb. A few bad apples. He's now the leading gentleman on the FBI indictment. And the question is, Davo, what now? Or as J. Rue Feldman tweeted us, will Sepp Blatter bend the knee? What the scenario? How does this play forward, David?
Well, I mean, in FIFA land, Rog, which is an alternative
where we're living now.
Parallel universe at all times.
Just give us a taste of FIFA land that you experienced during the World Cup.
Well, FIFA land is a sort of a myth. People are awarded gold-plated iPads when they go to FIFA land conferences. But during the World Cup, if you think of the shot sequence that FIFA land directors were ordered to follow during games where Sepp Blatter attended, they would take the shot of Christ in Rio.
Christ the Redeemer.
Yeah. And then they would go back to Sepp Blatter, and then they would go back again to Christ the Redeemer, just to make clear that what they were trying to suggest is that Sepp Blatter was Jesus Christ, as well as Nelson Mandela, by the way.
I don't know if it was that. It was unclear whether he was God or the Son of God.
I know. Well, no, as though Jesus Christ the Redeemer was the son of Sepp Blatter.
It was like watching Scorsese direct the match for a second. There was a bit of the Last Temptation.
And in FIFA land, it is possible that Sepp Blatter can feel that way, that he will be treated in that way, that he will be treated as a sort of a global leader, above politics, above law. You know, FIFA go into countries. Just remember this. FIFA went into Brazil. FIFA go into countries, and they supersede.
They are super law.
They supersede national law, national custom.
Taxes?
Everything. No, they go in.
Pay taxes.
And during the World Cup in Brazil, just as it was in the World Cup in South Africa, just as it was in the World Cup in Germany, in the World Cup in Japan and Korea, they become the de facto state during the World Cup. They are larger than any international borders.
Brazil had to change laws that had long been on its books to fit.
He is the president, exactly. He is the president of Pangaea during any World Cup.
And this is ultimately his undoing, is that when you are super law, you believe that nothing can touch you, nobody can harm you, you're above everything. And that's why also in the past, when there has been allegations, he's always been able to turn them into a purge of his enemies. The people who've fallen are always his enemies. He's never met a foe. Never met a foe like the FBI, the IRS. Maybe he's met the IRS.
So right. Possession is 9/10 of the law, Rog. But the 1/10 it isn't is when you're dealing with a global superpower which still plays and feels and behaves like an underdog, which is what the US is. And they're unwilling to accept that. They're unwilling to accept that.
He's never met a foe like the FBI, the IRS, and the Department of Justice.
I guarantee his first reaction when he heard about this, or one assumes some eunuch came into his room and mid-fanning had to... the poor guy who had to come in and tell Sepp Blatter that this was going on as he was drinking his hot chocolate in his bathtub of champagne and milk while he was being fanned by eunuchs, is that his first reaction would have been, what do they think they are doing? Who do they think they are dealing with? I am Sepp Blatter. I am super law. I am above all this.
By the way, this is why I'd be terrible, and a lot of you have suggested that Davo and I do become FIFA presidents.
Oh.
I hate being fanned by eunuchs.
Oh.
I hate it. I hate it. I really just don't like the attention.
There are other elements of the world, though, that I would enjoy.
Can I also just say, I bet you Sepp Blatter, when he heard Davo, felt very much like King George when the tea leaves went overboard in Boston. I mean, that was exactly... I felt a bit of that. I felt like this was a great American intervention.
He makes King George look like Mother Teresa, Rog. So any of the King Georges.
Here's my scenarios, Davo.
Yeah.
Great scenario. Sepp Blatter falls. The World Cup somehow leaves Qatar, a country as large...
Meaning that you do believe that it will go ahead in Russia?
I've seen Putin play ice hockey, Dave. I've seen him have a fight on the ice. If you've not seen it, Google Putin playing ice hockey. He has a punch-up with an opponent who's clearly crapping his pants.
I believe that the World Cup will go ahead in Russia. I believe that several countries will not be there. Not because... I mean, England might not qualify. But I do believe that England will withdraw... If the World Cup goes ahead in Russia, I do believe we will see countries, which I believe it will, I think we will see countries boycott the 2018 World Cup.
Please, God.
It's my psychic prediction.
Not you, America, because you're going to win it. But 2022, there'll be a World Cup in the USA. New FIFA president, Sunil Gulati, will present the trophy to US captain Gideon Zelalem. Oh, that is my dream outcome, David. I'd love that.
I'm not doubting Gideon Zelalem, Rog. But I have some questions.
Dave, he's only on the executive committee. He does a lot of good work. Takes the minutes.
Sunil Gulati voted for Sepp Blatter, Rog. And one would assume that when the vote happens, that Sunil Gulati is not going to vote for Sepp Blatter.
Oh, he's like the Queen of Thorns. That's what he is. He's got his ways. He's got his Littlefinger. He knows when to jump. Please be Littlefinger, Sunil, in this situation. I've got a dark scenario, Dave.
Yeah.
A dark scenario that Sepp does fall, but will continue to run FIFA from inside prison. Like Paul Savino in Goodfellas, he'll just be like cooking, they're frying up the steaks, he'll be slicing the garlic and running business in Oceania.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing that makes me think this could come true, Davo, no one wants to go back to being a wedding singer. Don't make him go back to being the secretary of the Suspenders Association. Then there's a long ball, Davo. If FIFA keep having, I mean, the FIFA Congress, from what I've seen so far today, it's like a show trial. I mean, it's completely hilarious with mounting horns and yodeling. This FBI trial.
And do you know what? They probably cut back on the mountain horns and yodeling with everything going on, and still there was more mountain horns and yodeling than we ever could have imagined in any event anywhere.
For the yodeler. He did not sign up for this kind of a congress. This was meant to be the biggest break in his career. He's just a casualty in all of this.
Like the female saxophonist at the Man United end of season dinner.
My long-running scenario.
Yeah.
Sepp stays. The FBI and the DOJ press on. And we have a protracted, spiralling case that will fill the world's airwaves, the front pages. Dark days already at Nike, and there'll be more brands, more politicians, more sporting industrialists sucked into this.
Yeah, we should say that Nike have not been directly, implicated in this, but there are accusations against a Brazilian marketing company and an individual who seem to have been involved with Nike getting the sponsorship of the Brazilian Soccer Federation.
It's all very much dependent to me, David, on the conversations going in the boardrooms of McDonald's, Visa, Coke, Budweiser, the rest.
Yeah.
Then part of me thinks, doesn't matter. Sepp Blatter won't resign. His face will just suddenly melt on stage like Arnold Ernst Turt at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the question that fills me with fear is ultimately it doesn't matter, Blatter, no Blatter. How do you change a culture, David? I mean, who will replace him? It's not just him. It's not just a one bad apple scenario. It's a whole repulsive. And this is where people want. I mean, today Platini, who's no angel himself, said, "I asked Sepp Blatter
originally.
I asked Sepp to resign." Sepp Blatter said, "It's too late." I imagine him squeaking. It's too late for me to resign, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's too late for me to resign.
There was ever a point that he said, "This is the right time for me to resign."
Yeah, now, right about now. Yeah. But ultimately,
should have resigned a few months ago.
FIFA's a hydra, many-headed, where you can cut off one, someone else will replace him, because all these guys are in a system of a medieval fiefdom where they were all in on the. They're all in on a bribe. They're all making the money. They're all printing money. So replace Sepp Blatter if you will. How do you replace it? How do you change a rotten culture?
Well, here's the problem, Roger. The 2018 World Cup, I believe, will go ahead in Russia. I think Putin has played it brilliantly. The US, other countries in the world can't afford to force the World Cup not to happen in Russia. It'll end up being a massive international incident if they do. So there's going to be a huge question about whether England, the US, maybe some other countries, my guess is it will be the English-speaking world, withdraw from that World Cup. Whatever happens, even if they don't, you've got issues with sponsors. Yes, McDonald's, Coke, Hyundai, etc., can withdraw from the World Cup in Russia, but that has a massive effect on Fox, who are the broadcaster of the 2018, 2022, and 2026 World Cup, which they got in some kind of, behind-the-scenes negotiation. How are they going to monetize this multi-million deal they made if they've got no official sponsors? They're just not going to.
I've got the answer to that.
And people aren't going to touch it. And I know that the ratings are going to be there.
Do you know who will?
Who?
They may all leave. The McDonald's, the Budweisers, the Visas, the World Society of Friends of Suspenders.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how much money they've got by the time it's being frozen in bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, Rog. I don't know how much money they've got. So,
do you not think there'll be an extreme makeover of the World Cup? They will get rid of Sepp, and they'll say they'll have somebody say we used to be corrupt, we're now transparent, we're now open. This is the new World Cup. Because to a large degree, Davo, the brands need the World Cup. There's nothing like it. Even the Olympics, everybody is watching different events at different times of the day. The World Cup, this is David Goldblatt, the great David Goldblatt, articulates this well in his great book, The Ball is Round. He said FIFA was a medieval kind of organization. It was an amateurish organization in the 70s until the 80s when Blatter's predecessor, Havelange from Brazil, who he eventually killed off, realized that television plus the football games plus global marketing made an unstoppable machine, because televisions had spread around the world, penetrated Africa to such an extent that football, the World Cup, where the whole world was watching one match and one match only, he said it was like a global eclipse. There's nothing like it in the world. To a large degree, brands do not want that one global eclipse. I mean, it dwarfs the Super Bowl. It's like a Super Bowl in every single country. Brands want FIFA to create the patina of change so they can say, yep, that was the old FIFA. We want nothing to do with that. We want new, green, environmentally sound.
But who is the man who can go and take FIFA forward to go and do that? I think, perhaps not as likely, but almost as likely, is the invention of some new global, international soccer competition. Let's remember, Major League Soccer, only 20 years old. The Premier League, only 25 years old. Who knows? The World Series of Soccer. Who knows, like, what it will be when all of this is said and done.
Who do I want to run it? My mind, when that question is asked, who next, always goes to the same place, George Marisan.
I thought you were going to say Bob Lee.
Always George Marisan. And then I thought, that's silly. He's not the right man for this job. You've got to save him for My Giant 2. And then I thought, we need a woman's touch. We need a woman's touch. And I thought,
Carly Fiorina's already running for president.
I like her. I like Gloria Steinem.
Yeah.
I do love Gloria Steinem for this.
Different women.
I like Gloria Steinem. But then I thought, you know what? We need a woman that the world of sport will take seriously. I thought one person and one person only.
Foudy.
Foudy. Get me Foudy. Get me Super Julie. Get me Super Julie.
Box to box.
Super Julie is a human being that Budweiser can believe in, that Visa can back.
Yes, Rog, Foudy could be the one.
Let's fire at the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Bring onto the pod someone who knows it even better than we do, David.
Yeah. Our guest, Rog, to talk about this historic event, the host of ESPN's Outside the Lines, where he's no stranger to in-depth investigations into sport's more nefarious side. He's the unquestioned king of American soccer journalism. He also happens to be the very first recipient of our Golden Blazer. We welcome to the pod, with his newly shaved-off beard, Sir Robert of Lee. Welcome.
It is a pleasure to be here. And Davo, to give you the backstory very quickly, it turns out that Swiss prosecutors had developed an unhealthy interest in my beard, so it had to disappear for a little bit.
Yeah. Has your beard, can you confirm or deny, has your beard taken kickbacks? Does it have its own apartment in the Trump Plaza for its own cats?
We do need to take a moment to talk about your beard, Bob, and address the big news in the football world. It has gone. How are your cheeks?
They're rosy. And I last shaved on the morning of the final in Rio de Janeiro.
Yep.
July 13th, 2014. And so I've been contemplating this, and it may come back over the summer. I've got some time off. But I figured what better day to take it off than the day after, a day I never thought I'd live to see, when FIFA power brokers are taken off in bracelets. So I think it is a metaphorical bookend of poetic proportions.
Oh, we've got to move from baby's buttocks to FIFA. Let's talk about it, Bob. Is America's greatest contribution to world football going to be off the field instead of on it?
Don't give up on our lads that quickly, boys. I tell you what, and again, a lot of this, everyone is saying, well, the FBI is involved. Indeed, they are, and the Attorney General and the U.S. banking laws. But, if Chuck Blazer was not forced basically into a corner 4 years ago, when that money hit the table and the guy from Bermuda took the picture of the money, and then basically, it was him going down at that moment or trying to survive, that Blazer knew that he had to blow the whistle. That was the seminal moment. That drew it all into the sphere of the lawyers.
We keep on trying to work out, is he a hero or is he
American hero?
And but my whole thing
I wouldn't waste a lot of time on that, guys.
When Hollywood make the movie of this, I'm just thinking, who is the actor that plays Chuck Blazer?
We've watched Donnie Brasco. We know how wiretapping works. Okay, let's get to, how did you feel watching Loretta Lynch up there? Now in our imagination, up there with Maya Angelou, Eleanor Roosevelt and Molly Ringwald as great American women. How did you feel watching that, Bob?
I think that she was just getting warmed up, and she made it clear that there is more to come. And I think that she's a very impressive performance, a very different demeanor than watching the former Attorney General. And this, she knew it cold, too. This was her case out of the Eastern District in Brooklyn, or I know you boys were able to negotiate those charges down to a little misdemeanor. This was her staff that put it together. So I'm told that she was out at a party last night. I don't know if it was with her staff or not, but it was a very impressive performance, and to also have the director. You don't often get the director of the FBI at the same press conference with the Attorney General of the United States. It's like maybe getting Beckenbauer and Pelé together at the same day. It doesn't often happen.
So, Bob, it's way too early to even... events are still developing. One assumes over the next 24 hours, over this weekend, over the next few weeks. Where do you see this leading in the near term right now in terms of Sepp Blatter's presidency, the election?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt he's going to be reelected if the election is held as scheduled on Friday. Between Africa and Asia is 100 votes of the 105 he needs, and both confederations have come out and said, we support our guy. Now, there'll be some slippage, but if he can get 80 to 90, he only needs 105. He will be reelected because he is think of it like Chicago, and he's the mayor of world soccer, and he has plowed everybody's streets. He has gotten everybody's brother-in-law the job they've needed. I mean, he's the alderman, that you like. He has taken, when Anguilla, Montserrat, and St. Vincent, but not the Grenadines, each have their own votes along with the United States. It's predetermined what's going to happen. He will be reelected. Now, whether eventually that election is mooted or whether he is criminally charged, that remains to be seen. But, the Swiss police raided FIFA headquarters at the same time that the Swiss police were also picking up these people at the hotel for the U.S. probe. I can't imagine anybody affiliated with FIFA had left on their desk or on their hard drive the Dear Sepp, the check is clear. Do you want it in Krugerrands or just under the pillow, email? I would hope that's not on the hard drive. You shouldn't be, handling sharp objects if you're that dull. So I don't know what they found. And this guy's a chameleon. He has survived forever.
Miniature giraffes, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's also Swiss police. It's very new for them, this thing, arresting people. It's a new muscle that they've only recently developed. I want to take you back one step, though, because it's a question that a lot of people are asking here as they get to... what is this football thing is probably the first question. And then the question we're getting a lot of, and we need the Bob Lee insight, why is America getting involved in this? Isn't it a bit like the British police swooping in to arrest Tom Brady for Deflategate?
No, because, have you guys tried to open a bank? Well, I'm sure you've opened many a bank account with the success of Men in Blazers, but especially in the post-9/11 era. Yeah, okay, I know. Jeff Webb is from the Caymans. I know
he's our banker.
Exactly.
You
may want to check your balance today.
He's a very reliable guy.
Exactly. We were seatmates coming home from Honduras a couple of years ago. I had a marvelous 3 hours, but didn't learn as much as I'd like to in the conversation. But because the banking laws of the United States have been trifled with, and you guys watch The Wire on HBO?
Oh.
What Lester Freeman called the headshot, which was the feds coming after people because of the falsified mortgage application. Mom and dad give you, $20,000 to make the down payment, and that's their window into getting you to cooperate. That's how they brought down one of Jack Warner's sons with the classic headshot. I mean, you've got two sons that roll over on their father. I mean, this is a combination of Shakespeare and The Sopranos.
But when you're asked, because you're now going on SportsCenter into the general milieu of American sportsdom, and I'm sure a lot of people are asking you, how does FIFA exist in this style of medieval fiefdom? How do you describe FIFA? I mean, it's bigger than the United Nations, 209 members to the United Nations, 193. How do you explain FIFA and explain to them that, as you've said, evidence like the 2018 Russian computers that they use for the 2018 bid can just go missing and no one bats an eyelid? How do you describe it?
Well, and the world, you've got to expect... You're thinking beyond the United States. Business is not conducted around the world the same way it's conducted in the United States. Like, for example, we were trying to land an interview with a particular individual in London for our show tonight as we're having this conversation. And in the European fashion, and Roger, you know this, and I'm sure, Davo, you've done business on the continent, quite often in a news venue, people request payment and are paid. Well, that's just the tip of the cultural difference iceberg. So you start there, different standards of business. And it's the brazenness. By the way, Joseph said...
I don't know what you were doing trying to book Piers Morgan, Bob, for your show.
Oh, yeah, he's a gooner, isn't he? But, you can accuse Sepp Blatter of many things, but not of having underinflated balls. And
he's got a special crew to inflate them.
He has taken as much power, and that's the attraction for Sepp Blatter, the power, not the money, as much power as people have been willing to give to him. And he joined FIFA back in '75. There were 12 employees. I mean, you've got more people detailing your car, Davo, on the weekend.
Too right.
By the way, I know you wanted payment in rupees, Bob, but we couldn't get it changed quick enough. So I hope you accept shekels. But how do you change a culture? Let's say they get rid of Sepp. How do you change this kind of incredibly corrupt, ridden culture? You said everyone's in on it. You know, there's a system of aldermen. Everyone's having their snow plowed. All that. How do you change that culture in your mind?
Well, any culture change takes time, and you need to have patience. I mean, there is a culture change. I think Prince Ali is part of that. I think anyone who's under the age of 50. I mean, you look at the age of some of these individuals who are charged, and clearly there's a gerontocracy in charge of international soccer, and just the calendar will take care of much of this, as it did with the International Olympic Committee as well. But again, that cultural change took time. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I've heard some fatuous talk of, well, there should be, break away and form our own soccer and have our own World Cup, and we're going to leave FIFA. No, you're not. That's not going to happen. There's too much.
I'm leading that charge.
Yep. We're going to have the Men in Blazers
the
World Cup
Series of Soccer.
We're going to have it right here in the crap part of Soho. There's an AstroTurf.
Kind of like 2020 cricket, huh?
Yeah, Pier 40.
Exactly.
Do you think we can get NBA Commissioner Adam Silver to take the job? Yeah.
Why would he take a step down?
Well, it's interesting you say this. I was just speaking to an agent on the West Coast, a fairly powerful agent, someone who sort of knows the business. He says,
what kind of phone calls you have every day?
And he said to me, well, surely what FIFA will do, they'll pay any price to bring in like somebody with unquestioned integrity and international respect.
Julie Foudy.
But the problem is, you're still dealing with FIFA's same democracy, one nation, one vote. Whoever comes in has got to get the votes of Oceania and Asia and Africa and CONCACAF Thunder, Bob. It's very, very difficult to change this organization overnight.
This becomes very quickly a social, racial, and economic issue. You see what Jack Warner said, his statement after being arrested about how the great world powers always try and subvert world football, and it's being painted. And I guarantee you in the hallways, as much as people think that some arms and can be twisted and some minds could be changed about the vote, why does Bladder, he has been generous with the FIFA money in Africa, the first versus third world argument. I mean, that resonates. That absolutely resonates.
Well, the same argument that was used against, this is just the English bitterness, and now it's going to be the English-speaking world's bitterness. And Putin, today, I thought a masterstroke to come out and say that this is all about America trying to take the 2018 World Cup away from Russia, almost ensuring that he gets the 2018 World Cup and it doesn't get taken away.
Yeah, I think hell will freeze over before we see a revote.
Will we see a World Cup 2022 somewhere other than Qatar?
I don't think hell can't freeze over in Qatar because it's too warm there. I think you're going to really, if this Swiss probe can turn up some smoking guns, possibly, but I don't think that means, guys, that it comes to the States. I think there will be enough residual bitterness around the world that the United States was behind getting Uncle Sepp out. I don't think that's a net plus to the United States.
And how about the idea...
moving to Syria just to spite us.
Yeah, ISIS territory in Iraq. And then how about the idea of certain national teams, England, the US, have been mooted, withdrawing from the 2018 World Cup or the 2022 World Cup?
Then how would Kyle Beckerman hit that master stroke from 60 yards?
Rog still has his FIFA. He's still got FIFA. He's still got FIFA. He's still playing it on his Xbox.
I really can't see that happening. I think we're fairly culturally locked into this because at stake is something that produces $4 billion of revenue for 6 weeks of soccer. Hello.
Yes, but is it going to produce $4 billion of revenue? If, as I expect, being a commercially minded gentleman, Bob, I cannot believe that McDonald's and Hyundai and Budweiser can stay in as official sponsors with all of this bad publicity.
Do you know what they put into those burgers, David?
Yeah, I don't.
Well, it's early in the World Cup cycle, and I think they're keeping their powders or burgers dry. To see which way it falls. I mean, one of them, I believe, has spoken. Others are making noises and clearing their throats. I mean, clearly, Bladder is 79. He can't be there forever. Can he? Guys, really? But I think you're right, yes. Obviously, only when some sponsors made noises last September about the NFL and Roger Goodell's leadership did the prospect of his exiting the job become even, on the radar scope. Same thing here, but it's a 4-year cycle. And, the money matters, certainly, but I don't think anyone's going to make a precipitate move.
Diego Costa's 79, and he's still moving around with General Lee's. Have you ever interviewed Sepp?
Yes.
Give us a
on the
great
street,
Sepp Bob Lee encounter.
1993,
Wow.
Dateline, Las Vegas. I'm walking with my camera crew from one venue to another outside, I believe, the Las Vegas Hilton, and of course in the lobby is that marvelous statue of Elvis. And we're walking down the street. It's a blistering hot day, and I had seen João Havelange and his entourage, and I knew Sepp Blatter, as the number 2 guy, and he's walking down the street alone, which of course never occurs now. And I said, "Oh, Mr. Blatter, Bob Lee, ESPN." And he stopped for 5 minutes, gave me a marvelous little interview. Our only in-person encounter. But you should have seen the fun that Robin Williams had with Blatter's name, both in the program and with us afterwards on SportsCenter.
But
that was our only encounter.
Blatter, I imagine, loves ESPN. I think he's probably a big Stephen A.
I'm imagining
Smith fan.
you in that scene, Bob, wearing the safari jacket.
And a pit helmet. How has your life changed over the past 24 hours, spearheading, I think, remarkable coverage? Jeremy Schaap also been on the forefront of this issue since the documentary film that he dropped about 2 weeks ago on FIFA and Sepp Blatter that we can't commend enough. How has your life changed in terms of the ESPN demands really leading the charge, reveling in this front page, leading sports center?
I'm sitting in editorial meetings for the last 36 hours when we're not talking to good friends on the phone or doing actual television. Saying this is an out-of-body experience. Not only is it a day I never thought I'd see with what happened to the FIFA officials today, I never thought I'd see where something off the field in soccer would dominate the news like this. It has been it's been interesting, and it's something that I think the American public can get their mind around. We're trying to, as much as we're dealing with allegations and whispers and charges that have been around for years. Obviously, at its heart, just all joking aside, is the need for fair and balanced coverage. We report, and FIFA decides. It's out of body to see this occurring, and it's been wild. And it's not done because he'll be reelected, I would expect, on Friday. And then the next phase, where will the prosecution go? Is there a case to be built? Will somebody flip? There's a lot of drama to play out here.
How does it play out, Bob?
How will it play out? Well, first they got to get everybody extradited. That's not a piece of cake. And then they've got to figure, try to get people to talk about what they know about everybody else. It's classic prosecutorial technique, but the indictment reads like something out of organized crime, racketeering, money laundering.
Yeah, 47 counts. Amazing number of charges on what we assume is only the tip.
Law
of
and
the
Order, SVU.
Chong.
Oh, amazing. Downside to the FBI FIFA takedown, though, Bob. Do you think the odds against the US women's national team winning the Women's World Cup have just lengthened?
Yeah. Only a conspiracy theorist and a cynical, bitter person would say that.
Guilty.
I join you in that cynicism.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Those 5 red cards in the Nigeria game, we never really recovered from them, did we?
No.
Yeah.
I'll be in Harrison Saturday hosting our game coverage with that at Red Bull Stadium as the send-off match. But yeah, it will be quite something if the women persevere. And I think it was the final match in Vancouver, I believe.
Yep.
It's on another network, so I'll find it somewhere on my cable system.
High
but
number.
If who knows? Will Sepp be there to hand over the trophy?
Well, the FIFA Land theme, every time it plays, the dun da 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 dun dun da 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 will evoke a whole new string of feelings and emotions every time.
We're
it's
not
there.
in Kansas anymore, Bob.
No, we are
No, we're
not in
not.
Kansas anymore. Bob Lee, thank you so much for joining us. R.I.P. to your fine beard. You grow a fine beard.
Well, I
Robert.
think we lunched together in its nascent stages last summer upon our return from Brazil.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we
You were fairly hirsute. It
We'd
was
love
not
to
that
do it
nascent.
again so I can rub my hands over your cheeks. 'Cause I'm imagining you now looking like Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway once he's been
Wow.
rescued from the island.
Yeah.
Well, you'd have to stand in line to do that today, but I know a man. I can get you one of the better spots in line.
Yeah, Shaq number 1, you number 2, Rog.
Long may
without
that be
a
the
doubt.
truth.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Good to talk to you.
Sir Robert of Lee, Rog,
What a man.
another great American.
What a golden blazer. I still don't know. He was the first golden blazer.
Yeah.
The next president of FIFA, Julie Fowdy, was the second blazer.
Yeah.
I still don't know whether we do give the third blazer to Chuck Blazer.
It's not just our choice, Rog. We have to call both recipients of the Golden Blazers with ourselves and the four of us have to come to some kind of agreement.
Conclaval agreement.
Yeah.
Since we went to air, a remarkable, persistent Channel 4 interviewer collared Sepp Blatter backstage at the Spectra FIFA convention and screamed, "Surely it's time for you to resign," in a way only the English journalist can. "Surely it's time for you to resign, Mr. Blatter, with the corruption and the corruption, and Mr. Blatter, surely it's time to resign." And then Sepp Blatter, looking ever more like Uncle Junior from the Sopranos, like shuffling around.
Nowhere near that hard.
Just in his slippers, just turned to the journalist and goes, "How are you? How are you?" And then ran as far away as he could. It's amazing television. This is probably going to run and run and run.
Dave, let's hope so.
I will say, Davo, last night we said, complete this sentence. Watching America take down FIFA is like blank.
Yeah.
Some beautiful tweets. At M. Laveri said, it's like America winning the World Cup. At I Like Azza said, it's like watching the last 20 minutes of Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. A lot of you said it looks like we're seeing Cersei Lannister in the Sparrow jail cell. I think my favourite is probably one that's just come in from at Kren Politics, who said it's like George Washington forcing the British to surrender at Yorktown. No one saw that coming.
Yeah.
I will say it's a great day for America on behalf of two quasi-Americans, one of whom very much wants to be American and is only thwarted by paperwork and bureaucracy. I want Loretta Lynch. I'm watching her. I was like, please let that woman make me swear to be an American.
Please let that woman do your paperwork. So
no, I'd love her to swear me in on the day. I've had a tough time, David.
Yeah.
I have, I'll be honest. Just cheer me up no end. Well, on Tuesday, Band of Outsiders went belly up out of business.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then yesterday, I was meant to take my first day off in 7 months.
Yeah.
I woke up with plans to go to a museum with my wife for the first time in months. Premier League season's been very demanding. We were then going to go to a movie. I woke up, my phone had blown up, and I felt like Ray Winstone in Sexy Beast when I'd tried to go straight for so long but been sucked back into a life of crime.
Yeah. And yet, you got a glint in your eye, you got a spring in your step. I've never seen you happier, Rog. You don't need a day off.
It's like the end of The Great Escape, Dave. In a funny way, you know. I've never been happier.
Yes. Cue Sepp Blatter with his cronies in the back of a truck, going to machine gun you in a clearing in the woods.
I'd love to go side by side with you, machine gun down by Sepp Blatter, probably more likely Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Got one question for you. When I'm on NBC Nightly News, do you think the Prime Minister of Ukraine gets tweets that he looks like me?
No, I don't think he does. Do you got a lot of tweets that you look like the Prime Minister of Ukraine?
Have you seen the Prime Minister of Ukraine?
He does look a little bit like you.
He's a very handsome man.
He is a very, very handsome man.
I love you, David.
Love you too, Rog. Fantastic job.
Great day for America. A great day for believing that FIFA will change, even if